higher level Pokemon Carvana. I named him Scraggy as the jars on sale, and I find this guy life hard, and then it's time to so we do off the burn and fire off an earthquake, which isn't quite half, but at least I can get rid of 9 kills with an earthquake. This means I get a bomb. I figure I can tank 1 flame wheel, but it does a lot of damage, and we barely touch Arcanine with earthquake. I decided Chester lost Fairy 1 turn earlier than I expected, and I'm not going to get the fire off 2 Night Slashes on burn. My second Night Slash even ends up being a crit, but it lives on red and Arcanine with a Night Slash, leaving only Sentis. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Gigantamax Sentis was the beginning of the end for me. See, I have this great plan. I was going to use Protect and still have Gigantamax turns and maybe not lose too many Pokemon, but unfortunately, Chester goes down to the first move. You live on to the Queen's heart, Chester. Next up, I sent an AK, which I thought I saw Protect, which probably wouldn't have mattered anyway, since it's squad weak to bug, but that's it for EK. My final attempt to still have the Sentis Scorch's Liverpool, and fortunately, I actually caught it Protect. However, Sentis Scorch's G-Max Fire move actually traps me in Fire Spin, which means I'm not going to be able to switch out later. And even though Liverpool manages to pull off the Toxic and stall a little bit by using Protect, it ends up going down to a Flame Wheel. Liverpool, all like Deadpool. And so after losing half my team, I have to send in Scraggy, who can stall a little bit using Protect, tank a Flame Wheel, and then win us the battle by using Headbutt. And I mean, yeah, we won, but at what cost? Immediately after the battle, I decided not to pay by fetching some new tricks. I also decided it's time to evolve Nuzleaf into Shiftry, since our team kind of needs an upgrade after that great loss. Oh, and I also visited the person who means most to me, Ball Guy. I then have a very close call with a Team Yellbrook where I almost lose Scraggy, but fortunately we pulled through, and after the battle, Exeter finally evolved into Crocorock. I met Farley and Stowe on side, which I gotta say is the weirdest name for a Syndicate. I named him Bradford, and unfortunately for me, Bradford is a bull nature, which is minus attack. And to prepare for what I expect is going to be one of the most difficult battles in my Nuzlocke career, I vault my Pancham into Sankoro, Carvana into Sharpedo, and Infinite into Morgrun. This means it's time to take on being and fighting types, which are obviously super dangerous against our dark types. I leave the Nottingham and lose my attack by using Workup, and Hitmontop fails to use his counter. After using my second Workup, Hitmontop hits me with a really strong revenge, but at least Citrus Berry gets me up above half health. At this point, I'm sitting up +2 attack from the Workup, so I'm feeling pretty confident that a single low sweep is going to take out Hitmontop. Kangoro suffers the same fate, and then she sends in Surfetch, which does actually get knocked out, but it does for Sword Dance, so I get a free KO the next turn. Now I know what you might be thinking. Hey, this gym battle is going very, very well against the fighting types, and how could it go wrong from this point? Well, Dynamax and Champ had different plans for the way this battle was going to turn out. I go for Protect with Nottingham, which actually lets me live in G-Max Cheese Strike. When you say pass on that, actually sounds like Cheese Strike. The second G-Max turn, I go for Low Sweep, which actually takes the champ under half health, but then Kangaroo has to go down to a G-Max Cheese Strike. I then send in Feeble, who can burn the third G-Max turn by using Protect, and I actually live a Cheese Strike pretty well. But my success with Feeble isn't long-lived. It goes down for revenge the very next turn. Now here's my biggest mistake. I should have put the Sticky Bomb on Feeble, that way I wouldn't have had to sacrifice Lionheart too. But when Lionheart goes down to Matchup, it means that the Sticky Bomb is transferred, and Matchup is now taking damage every single turn. This makes the rest of the battle super easy, because I can just fake out to burn 1 turn, and the second turn I take it out by just using Protect. So at this point, that means we actually have 6 deaths, a full team of Pokemon, and if this is the way it's going to go, we're not going to be able to sustain these raids for very long. Next, we have to go look at these murals, which Beat is trying to tear down, which I totally understand, because it looks like a 7-year-old can. Leon, was that you? So after we defeat Beat, the chairman's facial expression pretty much sums up how I feel about this game's whole storyline. And after we arrive in Bologna, we can pick up the super useful item, Eviolite, or as you guys in the comments insist, Eviolite. Yeah, I feel kind of E-violated by your harsh criticisms of my pronunciation. Facing the gym leader, Corpus evolves into Clawdog. Now the next gym fight is Opal and her fairy types, and this may sound very difficult on paper, but I have sound strategy. The first turn I use Protect just to burn off a turn so that I get to Opal's question. And since we know she's called the Wizard, she doubles our speed stat. I can go for only flaws as I get hit by a super effective Fairy Wind, which doesn't actually do too much because of EV light. Now the only flaw with my strategy is that we have to use Iron Tail, which isn't very accurate, but luckily we can take out Weezing with a couple. That's why it's important that we went for Home Claws, and Intimidate from Marwell nullifies my attack boost, but at least our accuracy is still good. And after knowing Opal's favorite color is purple, we get our defenses doubled, which means I can safely go for a Home Claws and live on 2 HP after Dreaming Kiss. Now at this point we're in a really good position. We're at +2 speed, +1 attack, we take out Marwell, we need to get another Moxie boost, and the accuracy boost from Home Claws means that we're going to hit Iron Tail every single time. This means we can take out Togekiss reliably with a single Iron Tail and get a third attack boost with Moxie. And our victory is further guaranteed by the fact that we use Protect all those turns, which means we get the question as soon as Alchemy gets out. And so with that additional attack boost and the fact that we can't miss Iron Tail, we guarantee our victory against Opal and get our 5th gym badge. That was a lot easier than I expected it would be. And if we can keep up this pace, we might actually be able to. I hope that doesn't mean he's going to start using fairy types. After this encounter, we arrive at Chichester, the smelly one. Here I get stopped by a police officer for not being good enough at Nuzlocke. Luckily though, it turns out that that's not a criminal offense, and after the battle, Bradford evolves into Grimmsnarl, and Skorupi evolves into Brachion. Literal instance after that, I run into my next encounter, a Sneasel. Now I decided to name the Sneasel Cardiff just to represent Leo, so that, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from that Welsh accent. Anyway, next up is Gordon, his rock types, and he starts off the battle with Barbarcle, so I send in Groudon. Knowing he's most likely going to go for Shell Smash, I decided to set up on my own and go for Sword Stance since most of the moves he has can't really touch me. That being said, though, I think more than half from a Razor Shell after taking him down with my own Razor Shell. I thought something would be a 2-shot with its massive defense, but it too goes down to a Razor Shell. And for Stone Turner, I specifically relearned Bubble Beam since it has a mere 20 special defense, so it's going to go down no problem. It's then time for Gordy's big bad boss Pokemon, Colossal, which is literally slow as dirt. So even though Derby's a really slow fish on land, Fighting-type Pokemon are some of the best around, so today I'm going to have some fun trying to see if I can beat a Pokemon Sword hardcore nut using Ultimate Fighting types. And Sword and Shield have a pretty awesome lineup of fighting types that catch exclusive to Shield exclusives like Toxicroak and Throw, but it's still just pretty good. The rules for the challenge will be on screen right now and down in the description down below, but without any further ado, let's do this. You grabbed your dad's old bag. Excuse me, what? Oh, you meant the suitcase? That's actually a way better way to start a Pokemon game. Hey, Wooloo, what do you think of my outfit? Yeah, well, it's not my fault that my mom dressed me like an unicorn. Anyway, despite our wardrobe malfunction, it's time to pick our starter, and since none of them evolves into a fighting type or is good against a fighting type, it really doesn't matter who we pick, so I picked Scorbunny. We then hop on a train to the wild area, but before we do anything over there, we take a slight detour over to the Isle of Armor. And this is where we can actually find our very first encounter of the Simeon, which is a great first Pokemon. I named it Hawkeye, and it has a gentle nature, which really ain't nothing to write home about, but that attack stat is truly fallen. I then head back to a regular wild area where I managed to find myself a Pincham, which I captured a Black Panther. I also go and pick up a leftovers item, which is definitely one of the best items in the game to begin this early. And the final thing I do in the wild area is actually find this dead Mario, which I capture and name Iron Man. And this thing is an awesome addition to the team. Not only that, it has a zombie nature, which boosts attack and lowers special defense, and we don't really need defenses on this thing since we're not going to be taking hits, but that attack boost is very nice. We then enter the show, but we get to meet the gym leader to work out the challenge, and they're going down if the Avengers have anything to say about it. Shortly thereafter, I run into a Tyro down Route 3. I name it Bucky, and it has a speed-boosting nature, but we also have to decide which evolution we want. Keeping that in mind, I move on to the Gala line where we can find our next encounter in Timber. And I hate to be the guy to ask, but is every Timber born with a wand in their hand? How does that work? Anyway, I capture and name it the thing, and it ends up having an adamant nature, which is plus attack minus special attack, the best possible nature it could have. But before we can leave the lines, we actually have to take on our first challenge against Trainer B and his Psychic-type Pokemon, which might be a real challenge against our Fighting-type types, but Black Panther pretty much just makes a snack out of his whole team. Wakanda forever. Rest in peace, Chapter. Anyway, he gets a proper beating and we live on to Route 4 with run into this particular trainer. Our fighting types handle his meows with ease, but the real challenge begins when he sends in his butter training. You must understand that this thing not only quad resists fighting, but also does super effective damage with moonlight confusion, so I figured my best bet is to send in the thing to the rock throw. Very fortunately, the butt ring decides to go for a string shot on the switch in, and I jolly well know that a rock throw is my only chance here, but I get hit by a powerful confusion first, and then my rock throw misses. Now, I do understand that it's quite difficult to take a butterfly mid-air with a rock. However, this unfortunate chain of events means that my animate nature, she-balls Kimber, is not going to be with us anymore. And I was so looking forward to using that thing. I suppose we can't all have nice things. Now, I was afraid of wiping for this butt trick, but fortunately, we have the King of Wakanda to save us. And so, as we retire our first team member at the hands of a trainer before the first gym, I think I'll retire this accent as well. But not before I make fun of Pyro. My goodness, boy, has puberty only struck you from the neck down. Anyway, that's enough British for now. While we're fighting this gym trainer, Pyro actually gets to level 20, and since its attack and defense are the same value, it evolves into Hitmonchan, my favorite Hitmon. With that, it's finally time to take on our first gym challenge versus Milo. He starts out by sending in Gossipler, so I start with Iron Man. Now, I know that I could have a Lucario at this point in the game if I just ran around and maxed out Riolu's friendship, but I think Riolu with Sword Stance and Agility will do the trick. And as you can see here, I go for the 2 Sword Stances to get the +4 attack and an Agility to double my speed just so that I know I can outspeed the Eldegoss in the back. I then put the Gossipler and the Eldegoss with a Poison Jab, and it's enough to beat the gym. But I mean, it's the first gym, so what do you expect? At least this means that we can pick up a first badge, and before the next gym, I decided to go for the Wild Air. Eventually, I found one in the overworld, and it actually ended up being male, so I captured it and named it Dr. Strange. It ends up having a rash nature, which is absolute garbage for a future Galley, but moving on to Region 5, we can actually find Farfetch. Galarian Farfetch is probably my favorite regional form of all time. I've always loved Farfetch, but it's got such a weird condition to actually evolve it. Here's the deal, you have to get 3 critical hits in the same fight, so what I did is I gave Farfetch the weak item that was already holding, which boosts its critical hit ratio. I then used the focus energy to boost my crit ratio by another stage, and finally I caught it with Leaf Blade, which has a high critical hit ratio off the bat. And with that setup, I managed to get 3 crits in one fight, so say hello to our newest member of the team, Captain America. I also managed to get my rolls up to level 20, which means it evolves into a Curlia, and shortly thereafter, I give it a Dawnstone that I found in the digging duo, and it evolves into a Galley. We then move on to Holbury, where we find the chairman who keeps doing this thing where he forgets to put on his pants. And speaking of people who don't really wear pants, we actually have to go up against the gym leader, Nessa. And since we have Galley, let's just say that this gym battle wasn't that difficult either. The first thing I did was set up a sword stance, I then got hit by a horn attack from his Goldeen, but after that, it was goodbye to Leaf Blade, goodbye to Leaf Blade, but then we got Dreadnought, and this thing actually ends up outspeeding me. It goes for a max strike, which I survive on 6 HP. I could then just subsequently pick it up with a quad effective Leaf Blade, but that was way too close to call. We could have lost Galley, and I definitely don't want to do that. Yeah, I guess we put up a little bit of a fight, Nessa, but give me that badge. We can then move on to Galamine, where we get a nice encounter, which is also pretty bad at wearing pants. I need my shiny Deadpool, and it has Moxie, which is one of the best abilities in Nuzlocke. We then have to take on Bead once again, so Deadpool doesn't work right away and takes out his whole team. We also have to go up against Barney and her Dark types, which goes about as you expect it to go. Yeah, fighting beats dark. It's not rocket science, boys. After that, I do my final preparations for the next ship battle against Kabu, and I get everybody up to level 27, including Riolu with my last few candies. And at that level, it ends up evolving into everybody's favorite Lucario. And this means we have to go up against Kabu, probably the most difficult gym leader in a hardcore Nuzlocke with Sword and Shield. And I initially lead off with Galley just the same as I did against Nessa, as Kabu goes for a Will-O-Wisp, but I have the Lost Fairy to heal off the burn. I follow this up with a Sword Stance to boost my attack, and the thing is, I know I'm going to get Will-O-Wisp immediately the next turn, so my plan is to set up the +6, so the burn gets me down to +40. And it's pretty much exactly what happens. I get burned, I get my +6 and then I get hit by a Fire Spin, but fortunately, since I take 9 kills out with an Earthquake, that means that I can actually switch. Next up is Arcanine, and it gets us down pretty low with a Flame Wheel, but we can survive the burn even after we take it out with an Earthquake. And so now is where the problem comes in. We have to face Centiskorch, which is a Bug type, which resists fighting, so I decided to swap out into Visinian. Not that Visinian can really do any better than anybody else on the team here, but it's at least not burned by Galley. But since we swapped from Galley, it wants to go for Max Flutterby, which fighting resists. For whatever reason, fighting and Bug resist each other. And you ever slap the Bug, I would argue that should be super effective. Anyway, here we get a Max Center Burn out of Group Protect, which doesn't do that much damage, I get to bulk up the next turn since I'm faster, which means that I can take this hit a bit better since it's based off a physical move. This means the set scorch's G-Max turns are up, but we are still trapped in that fire spin, which means we can't switch out, and our health is getting really low. After hitting Center Scorch for about half damage with an Earthquake and expecting to get taken out, it goes for Coil, which is good since we survive, but that defense means that Center Scorch can survive an Earthquake, which means we get taken out no matter what because of that fire spin. Very unfortunately, we get the second death to run, so I send in Bucky to finish off Center Scorch with a big one, and that is it for the third match. All things considered, that could have got a lot worse, and I'm very happy we got through with only one casualty. Moving towards Hammerlock, we have to go through the wild area once again where we can find a mock shop. I name it home, and shortly thereafter I find a scuffle that I name Rocket. Run, 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 run! Listen, I tell you keep pretending this, but fetch your lucky trousers, old chap. Now, before we can get the snow outside, I decided to find myself a halucha, which is only a few percent encounter, and it took me like half an hour to find this thing. But eventually, I managed to find a detection, and I named it Falcon, which means we're ready to take on the next gym challenge against me and our fighting time. And since our hip on top really can't do that much to our Falcon, I decided to set up some swords dances and prepare for the win. What's going on? Hold on, guys. Let me just pick this up. Nick, this is actually perfect. You've got Doc in your username, so what would you call what I'm about to do to base team in medical terms?
Well, that's easy. The medical terminology is usually connected action, which is getting absolutely destroyed. Or if you want me to be more specific, we can call it total trainer failure with sudden on-site team destruction.
Thanks for the clarification, Nick. Also, it's not wrong. They got absolutely destroyed in this fight, and we get to claim our 4th gym badge. After the fight, I level up Pan-Chan for level 32, while we have Scraggy in the team, which means it evolves into a Pandoro. After that, we can proceed to Valenleo, which happens to be my favorite city in all of Pokemon.
Hey, don't interrupt our conversation.
Excuse me, what? Who are you talking to? I swear these NPC interactions get weirder and weirder. What the? Anyway, we got our next gym fight to worry about against Opal and her Fairy types, which you might think would be very good move for fighting types, but we have Lucario. And not only that, during the Opal fight, you get these questions, and if you know the answer, you just get free boosts. So the first turn, I get to set up both a Nasty Plot and an Agility for free. I then go ahead and set up another 2 Nasty Plots, and from there, it's just a Flash Cannon, an Aura Sphere, Massacre, or Team. And personally, I think the twist on Opal fight is really cool if you don't know the answers, but if you've played this game as many times as I have, it makes it super trivial no matter what type you use. And even though we've had a pretty easy time so far, this one is giving me a run for my money later on. And as we move on forward through the Galar region, we have to fight Hopper once again. I fought him like 10 times, and we sweep him right on through. But the important thing about this fight is that we get Scraggy to a high enough level that it evolves into Scraggy. Then as we continue our way to Circhester, we find one of my favorite new Galarian Pokemon after this run, and that is Phalanx. I captured a name in Ant-Man, and it has a neutral nature and a battle armor ability, which is so useful in these runs, since it can't get crit. We then arrive in the Winter Wonderland city of Circhester, and here I decide to go to the local pizzeria. Hey kid, you looking for a pizza? Dude, we've already established that I'm Swedish. For now, perhaps. For now. And with that ambiguous threat out of the way, it's time for us to take on Gordy and its rock tide. He starts out with Barbarian Bolt, so I start out with Dr. Strange, who can outspeed and take it out with a quad-effective blade right away. We then have to go up against Stonejourner, so I set up a sword stance to power myself up a bit, and he goes for Wonder Room, which is very odd. It swaps everyone's defense and special defense, but since he has 20 special defense, that means he now has 20 physical defense, so we can just take him out in one hit. Yeah, Gordy, I'm not sure where you were going with that plan, but Shuckle is up next, and since it has the same defense and special defense, Wonder Room doesn't really matter, but we can still take it out in one hit with close combat. Then it's time for the G-Max Colossal, and this thing is both close to water and ground, so as long as you have either of those moves and you can outspeed, you're pretty much guaranteed this win. Get out of here, Gordy. Why are you still using fossil fuels? Get with the program. And so I get the 6th badge, about as easy as stealing candy from a kid. We can then move on to Route 9, where I find my next encounter, a Grapplock that I named Mr. Fantastic. And before we can move on to the Spike of Gym, we have to go up against Marty, who uses Dark types. Now, the thing about Marty is that her Leaf Light Turn has Snarl, so if you have anything that can hit Dark moves, you can just set up on her and destroy your team. And this is generally a big flaw in the game design that you can exploit in these hardcore Nuzlocke, especially in the Emerald Elite form, but we're going to do the same to here. Scrappy because it has sand attack, which can kind of ruin your plans. And after getting intimidated, it goes for fake out, which means I can outspeed the next turn and go for encore, and now the Scrappy gets locked out and playing the game. And so what my plan is going forward is to go for 3 feather dances to lower this Scrappy's attack as much as possible so that I can later swap in Lucario. And as soon as I swap in Lucario, Scrappy's encore actually ends, which means it's going to start going for sand attacks as I set up my nasty plots. And you might think that this would actually be a huge problem since we're not going to hit our moves, but we can get around this with a bit of cheese. The third turn I go for a nasty block, it goes for Brick Break, which actually does a fair amount of damage for being -6, but after that, I'm free to unleash an Onslaught of Forest Sphere, which is a move that can never miss, so those sand attacks did nothing, buddy. I don't do encores, get it? Not songs, not moves, not Pokemon. Yeah, well, unfortunately for you, Piers, I do encores, which means that you lose this fight, and I get the 7th gym badge. And it's from here on out that some of the battles were actually surprisingly tricky. And then to Hammerlock, where we run into Leon, who's still dressing like this. Dude, you look like you robbed a thrift store blindfolded. You certainly did, Andrew. Giving me a run for my money is Miss Galler. Speaking of which, we now go up against the former Miss Galler, the social media king Ryan. And so to start out this fight, I meet up with Iron Man and Bucky and go for a fake out on the game lift so that he can't body press Iron Man. Flygon then goes for a breaking swipe, which means both my Pokemon are going to lose 1 stage of their attacks, but it doesn't matter too much since I'm a special attacking Lucario. That being the case, I go for a nasty block, and the next turn I lead up with a protect. However, Flygon decides to target my Lucario and hits me with a Thunder Punch that doesn't do too much damage, and I can set up another nasty plot. Eagles then decides to throw and goes for a Stealth Rock instead of Body Press, which I do have Chocolate Berry on Lucario for. I also decided to go with a Moon Relearner and Rebound Helping Hand so that I can power up Lucario with Bucky. And after I get my attack lowered again by Breaking Swipe, I can take out the Big Lift in 1 hit, which I definitely didn't need that Helping Hand for. Ryan then sends in his Sanded Contest, so I decided to do the exact same thing and go for a Helping Hand, after which I get hit by a Thunder Punch and can take out Sanded Condo with another Aura Sphere. 2 down, 2 to go, and Ryan's next Pokemon is Duraludon, which he's obviously going to Gigantamax. Now, what I did here was actually kind of a gamble, because I'm pretty low health, and I wasn't quite sure if Flygon was going to take me out. It was arranged in my calculations, and losing Lucario would be a big hit to the team, but I decided to go for the Helping Hand here to power up Lucario one more time. I then get hit by the Thunder Punch, and I very narrowly survive on 1 HP. This means that I actually get to fire off my Force Sphere and take out that Duraludon, which means we only have Flygon left to deal with. Naturally, I can't risk Lucario at this point, so I swap out the Deadpool and go for Protect, so I get hit by the Thunder Punch on Deadpool anyway, so I guess that Protect doesn't matter. I then get hit by another Breaking Swipe, which means that my following close combat and break combo is going to do pretty much nothing. And since my defenses have been lowered, I decided to swap out Bucky for Captain America, and I then get hit by another Breaking Swipe, lowering my attack even further as a Crunch gets it down into the red, and the next turn I can just finish it off with a First Impression from Cat. This means we got through this battle without losing anyone, and I'm always afraid to take on Reinhardt. Double battles are not my forte, but this also means that we can claim our final gym badge. And now that the level cap is a little bit higher, we can finally head to the Lake of Outrage, so we can pick up the Pokesack and the Assault Vest. Most importantly, we can find our next encounter, the pseudo-legendary Jang Moho. I name it Shang-Chi, and it has an adamant nature which is about as perfect as it gets, but we have to box it since it's level 52. We then have to tread the dangerous path that is Route 10, but Captain America takes care of the competition easily, and we can get the win there.
Oh, no. What's the matter with you, huh?
Your mom.
My sister?
Asshole.
Oh, stop it.
We're working to take part in the Pokemon.
Oh, the big thumb now?
First opponent is Marnie and her Dark types once again. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Marnie has this easily cheese white part, but it does use Torment, so
Fuck, cracker.
I'll do fuck your mother.
So the first turn, I go for a Sword Jam, instead of my attack +2, I then hit my Snarl, after which I do no retreat.
Asshole.
Signature move. All your
Asshole.
can't switch out.
She's an asshole now.
Balance in this battle, and if things
That's
don't
not
south, there's
Four and a
nothing
half
to
years
do
ago.
about it.
That's
My
fine.
Sword Dance on a +5 attack, which means I use no retreat,
Like,
just so I can cycle through Sword Dance and get to max attack once again. Once in the max attack, my partner uses Prankster, Nasty Plot, and we can take it out with a single close combat. I then cycle between Brick Break and close combat, it being very important to use close combat first,
Asshole.
so we can use it against the
Stop
team.
it.
No.
Cody.
Fuck you.
Stop it, Peaches.
And with that, we actually beat Marnie with
Peaches.
I'll end you.
Oh, stop it.
I'll end you.
Oh, but it's been boom boom. Getting hard. Getting hard.
I'll end you, bitch.
I'll make you my bitch.
Asshole.
Cheap.
Bitch.
We look for a date, mister.
No.
Yes.
Don't have time.
Oh, gee whiz. Yeah, that smirk. Yeah. Yeah, look at that smirk. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. You got lots of time, mister.
No, I don't.
Smarty.
Asshole.
Smart aleck. Butt cracker.
No.
Yes.
I mean, you don't fuck yourself.
Or Peach has got lots of time now.
No, I don't.
Yes, you did.
No, I...
Stop being haughty. Stubborn. You got lots of time. You got more time than me. Yeah, I'm 55. How old are you? 29, 28? You got more time than me. Big bump up.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, yay, yay. You got more time than me.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna smack that bump bump. Hey, 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 hey. Please, 29, right? 28.
Go fuck yourself.
55, you got more time than I do.
Asshole.
Cracker Jack.
Fuck you.
Waterfall.
Go fuck yourself.
Butt cracker.
No.
Yeah, you got more time than I do. Smarty pants.
Huh.
Smarty PJs, yeah. Smarty PJs, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, yay, yay. Look for a date on that phone. Smarty pants, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look for a date, mister. Go see if that place is open over here. Dollarama. Right in the hole.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the hole. Yeah, I cheat. Snatchy. Get upstairs, too. Get upstairs. Still having that. Did that Rocket League to the new console, yeah.
So far was going to be against the Supersonic Heap of Trash, but I sent this Bucky to finish things up with a much needed fix.
Sleepy head? We have a cup of coffee or something.
I don't drink that shit.
Just have a half a cup.
No.
Just have half a cup.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Fuck, boy. Fuck you.
But your dishonesty stems from the fact that you're trying to annihilate humanity. It's a little bit different, bros. Anyway, next up is beat. It isn't to look very much like Opal, so we're going to use the same strategy and we can just start setting up our nasty plots. After that, the battle isn't particularly interesting. It's just a flash cannon massacre. But you know what, Big? That's exactly what you deserve after being insufferable pain throughout the entire story of this game. But look at the bright side. He already looks like a grandma, so maybe you can fill Opal's shoes. But now that we've taken care of our rivals, it's time to finally get to the part of the game that gets kind of dicey. Nessa sends in the Lysopod, so I go into Falcon and use Aerial Ace, which doesn't quite get into half health. Fortunately, though, the Lysopod just goes for a sword chance, so I can hit it with another Aerial Ace to get it down into the red and send it out with emergency exit. After that, she sends in Caliber, which sets up the ring with its crystal ability, but we're able to just take it out with a single plot effective Thunder Punch. However, the fact that it set up the ring is kind of scary, since the next one on the end of the face is Barracuda, which is a speedy game. And so not only do we tank a liquidation pretty poorly, Thunder Punch doesn't quite take it out, so I have to switch out Malucha. I decided to go with the Bucky as I expected to go for a full restore and then go for Fake Out the next turn, just so that the rain stops. This means that the next turn I'm going to be able to tank that liquidation at above half health and go for a close combat to take out this Barracuda once and for all. To be honest, that Barracuda is probably the scariest thing on our team, but next up she goes into the Lysopod, but luckily I have the quick attack so that we can just take it out as soon as it comes out. I then made kind of a mistake here because I should have expected this thing to go for Aqua Ring. It usually always does, but I switch into Black Panther just so I can go for a Parting Shot for a safer switch into Captain America. And And on the switch here, I do have to eat a waterfall, but it doesn't do that much damage, and I can take it out the next turn with a leaf blade. And you'll note that I was actually faster right there. And the only reason I outsped and I'm going to outspeed this Dreadnought is because I have the choice scarf item that we picked up earlier. And so this means that I can hit Ness's Dreadnought with a quad effective leaf blade, and obviously it takes a, hold on, what? Yeah, even though I hit it with a quad effective move, I didn't manage to take it out in one hit, which means we get hit by a powerful G-Max move, which we actually survived. And so funny enough, we can just outspeed the next turn with our scarf and take it out with another leaf blade. That was pretty unexpected. And so if we have this much trouble with Nessa, what about B? I mean, we're super effective against B, right? What could go wrong? Nothing could go wrong here, guys. We start out with the Halucha mirror match, and I go for a sword stance, and I did have a Coma Berry to reduce flying damage, but since Flying Press isn't specifically a flying move, it's listed as fighting when you select a move. It doesn't actually reduce the damage, but we don't take that much. I can then take out B's Halucha with a single aerial ace as well as her grab rod. She then sends in her own surf edge, and since I only have one boost at the moment, I decide to go for a sword stance as it misses a slam. I then decide to stick with +4 and not +6 and go for the aerial ace here just to take it out. And at this point, B sends in her own balance, which just goes down to a +4 aerial ace. No problem. And at this point, we only have B Bloodshot left, and we're going to take, oh, hold on, let me just take this.
Hey, Axel, I just checked over your history, and it seems like you're predisposed to getting disqualified this fight. So careful, good guy.
Predisposed to getting disqualified? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, you know I said that I skipped going to +6? Well, that was a big mistake, because that one moves the most often. I then decided to go into Bucky as she goes for a full restore, and I go for a fake out, which doesn't actually cancel out G-Max moves anyway. The next turn, I actually managed to misclick and go for another fake out, which doesn't do anything, obviously, and I get hit by a max strike pretty hard. This means the champ will shrink down again, but since we're at lowered speed, I decide to swap out. So I go into Gallery, who I figure can take some hits, which is obviously true, and I go for Lawless to lower his attack, but then I realize that he has guts. So instead of weakening the champ, I just gave it a big buff. Yay me! I then decided to go for fake out for some more burn damage, but since I don't want to take a hit, I swapped it with Phalanx, who actually manages to dodge the cross chop since this Machamp doesn't have no guard, and I can hit him with a close combat for really low health. In fact, so low health that this Machamp is going to go down to the burn, but not before it takes us out with a revenge. Yeah, losing half my team to be like this definitely gives me Vietnam flashbacks for my first Sword and Shield run, and it's very unfortunate. Moving on though, we'll have to leave for our fallen comrades at another time because it's time to take on Raihan. He starts out with protocol as it's Kamala's debut, and I go for Autonomize to double my speed. Raihan then decides to go for a yawn, which means I'm going to fall asleep at the end of the next turn. However, before any of that, I go for a Bell Drum, which halves my HP, but maximizes my attack, so I get hit by a body press, which doesn't really do much at all. Chesterberry then wakes me up, and I can start going for Dragon Claws to take out Raihan's team lickety split. The only problem is Duraludon can survive a +6 Dragon Claws by half Brick Break as my 4th move to take it out in one hit. Yeah, Raihan really has no shot at being Galler's top model. I'm a lap around. And so this means we can be forward, we can move, hold on. Before anything else, we have to meet up with the legendary set. Zacian looks like it has a string of sausages attached to it. Talk about a hot dog. And you know how I told you guys that Rose was plotting to annihilate all of humanity? Well, we're here to stop it. And probably the biggest flaw of his whole plan is to challenge me to a battle right here. Like, he knows that I have only fire types and he uses steel types. Anyway, that's obviously going to be to his detriment as he starts out with Escavalier and I send in Scrappy. I decided to go for a Dragon Dance, by the way, as Escavalier goes for Swords Dance, which is very unfortunate since I outspent already and I can just take him out the next turn with a Fire Pulse. This is going to do the exact same things against Oleana and trigger my Moxie boost, and we can just start carrying through Rose's team. And you know, somehow I managed to trigger more Deja Vu for my first Sword Nut bot, but this time it's some good memories of taking down a deranged lunatic. I honestly feel like we're going to make Rose a way more difficult boss fight, kind of like Lucinate, but it's easy enough with fighting types. And this means that we only have one more challenger to face, Champion Leon. And Leon can honestly be a pretty difficult opponent because you can't really set up against his Aegis Slash very easily, and he got some pretty powerful members on his team. Now, the very first turn, I decided to go for agility so I can outspeed the next Pokemon as I get hit by a Shadow Ball expecting a Secret Sword, so I have the Chuckle Berry. I can then easily knock out this Aegis Slash in one hit since its attack stance only has 50 in both defenses. You'll notice I also switched it up to a physical-based Lucario, and as Haxorus comes out, we hit it with an Ice Punch to about over half. We then unfortunately have to say goodbye to Lucario, who's been an invaluable team member this run. I am Iron Man. We then pass the torch on to Steve, who can barely survive an outrage on 18 HP and retaliate with a close combat to take out the Haxorus. It means that we've taken out 2 of Leon's Pokemon, and he's almost taken out 2 of ours, so it's a pretty fair trade at this point as he goes into Mr. Rhyme. And Leon evens out the score by going for a psychic to take out Cat. It ended up being like the old man said, together. I then decide to go into Deadpool, who gets hit by a Tear Dance, but a legendary heals it off, and I can then boost my stats with a Dragon King. This, of course, means that I can outspeed the next turn and take out this green